Daniel B. is, and I can see Mary Lou.
You were, and I told him you were, he said, why, you're not out hunting or fishing or something? I said, there's nothing to hunt right now.
Remember to pray.
Okay, we'll start this meeting, and it's actually more of a discussion with prayer, and Pastor Karen, I think that mic is live.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, you give us all good gifts. You've given the resources of this congregation into our care, and brothers and sisters to be stewards with us. Please guide us as we discuss the coming year, the proposed budget, and our use of all that you have given to us. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
I think I said that back. So in your Friday reminders and for those of you who are here, we printed some out. We did the 2021 proposed budget as well as the 2020 financials. So I think I would like to maybe open it up for if there are any questions about the 2020 financials, since those are closed out and done. Mike.
The mission endowment fund report is also out.
The mission endowment report is also out, and that will be going out with the booklets.
And it'll also be up on the website within
Yes.
by tomorrow. I'm getting those reports out today, later today.
Yes, and we are putting everything on the website so you can pull up those documents and review them as necessary. And those hopefully will be totally completed by Tuesday. So you'll have complete booklets, but there'll be bits and pieces. Pastor Karen.
We will have printed reports next week, and also you people who come in and pick them up. But if you can't get in to pick it up and you would like a printed copy, or let's face it, you're probably not watching if you want a printed copy. So if you know somebody who isn't watching that would like a printed copy, let us know and we can mail it or drop it off.
Yes, so the booklets will be available definitely by next Sunday.
Yeah.
So you can pick them up, and you can actually pick them up during the week if you don't want to come in and you need to socially distance. And as Pastor Karen said, it's all going online. Generally, though, people that are online, they're okay. However, if you know anybody that's a member that would like a packet sent to them, please let the office know, because we'll gladly put one in the mail for you. So the important thing is we want to get everything out to everybody the best way that it works for them. So, are there any questions about the 2020 year-end financials? I want to point out a few things. And that means I have to put my coffee down. So of the 2020, the one thing that I know it gets a little bit confusing is the fact that in the past, and we continued it through 2020, but the operating expenses oftentimes have to take funds or borrow funds from the dedicated accounts. Those dedicated accounts, yes, are cash in those dedicated accounts, but oftentimes we have to take monies from that cash amount. And I don't want to call it a savings account per se, because it's not really savings. It has a purpose. But we have to take for them to pay for current expenses. So always the biggest question that I always get is from people asking, what is this with the dedicated transfers? And that is the borrowing as such. Now, this year, I want to thank all the congregation for being more than generous. Unfortunately, it's not always totally enough, but it has been more. We, last year, asked people if they would increase their giving, and some people signed letters to increase their giving. This year, it's going to go out in your packet, so it'll be both electronic or if you pick it up, asking if you are going to continue that giving and at that level, if you are going to increase or if there are going to be changes. So I want you to seriously consider what it is that you are giving and furthering the mission of this church. So that will also be in your packet, so I wanted to definitely point that out. So, as you can see, we did have more offerings. Some of those were one-time offerings, and some of them were the routine giving, what
Tithes.
normally people ever do. Yes, the normal tithes. So, but we have had some special gifts given to us in the operating. So while it looks good, it's not necessarily something we can bank on next year. So that's the one thing. And then the other one was the fact that as we borrow from these dedicated accounts, of course, we have to give that back as it comes in. So we did not have to borrow as much as we needed to. However, we have been borrowing over the past few years and trying to play catch up. So it's not as rosy from the simple fact that we've been doing this for a number of years. Was it a good practice? I can't tell you that, but it seemed at that time to be the only practice that we could use to pay the bills. Bob Mosley has a question.
Well, to that end, the payback to the dedicated funds from the general fund for the offering, but that hasn't been done in months, or we're talking years.
Oh, it's done. It was done.
It is being paid back and so it is a budget item. That's what I'm trying to explain. It's not like we're putting money into a savings account. It's actually money that we had borrowed and we're paying back.
You are paying it back
Yes.
each month, or there's an account that's
It-
from savings that you move money back and forth.
Yes, and
I don't know what it's like now.
as I'm going to defer to Mike, who's acting treasurer, on how often he pays that back. I'm assuming, the question was, have we paid back the amount, for those of you who couldn't hear Bob?
How many months have we?
And how often do we pay that back? And so I will have Mike, and can I have you stand at the microphone? I'm not sure how that works as far as him paying it back.
I didn't pick up a copy, so you have it.
Or do you need the work plan? Does that piece of paper work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
On what we're paying, in the 2020 cycle, as you went into it, we owed the reserve account $20,000, $20,200. Under expenses, 04 is paying that back over the year in equal monthly increments. Then to make the 2020 budget balance, we borrowed money, and most of that shows up in dedicated transfers of 28,000. There's 3,000 more on that dedicated transfers amount that came in last year to 2020. So we paid back 20,200. We borrowed that plus 18,000 more during the year.
So
Is that it?
So monthly installments. I didn't know if it was depending on the bills for that month. So monthly installments.
So we had nothing in the checkbook to be able to move that money over at the end of the month into the dedicated fund.
Correct. That is my understanding.
Monthly transactions.
Weekly transactions, but it's always been back to the savings dedicated.
But then
Yeah.
borrowed again.
Well,
That, I mean, that is,
that's a trend.
right.
That is the trend.
Yeah. It's been useful, and I have to say now to congratulate Mike for all the work and the busy hours that he's put in. Christine is going through this.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
So those of you who are online and didn't hear Bob, Bob is thanking Mike for all of his service, which we all thank Mike for all of his service to help us through this, for lack of a better term, quagmire. Pastor Karen.
I just want to emphasize that we both have the challenge that we borrowed, whatever the total amount is that we borrowed. It's something like 37,000, 39,000.
38.
Which is in excess of, 18,000 in excess of what we had to pay back. So we had to pay that back and borrow it, and plus another. So that is, I mean, really a problem. And, that is true. And it's also true that we had to borrow about 13,000 less than we had budgeted, which
Yes.
For that, I'm hugely grateful, and that's a lot of people who did pledge to increase their offerings and did so, and a lot of people who have been really consistent about sending in offerings, even if they're not able to be here. So it's something to celebrate. I'm not trying to be in denial of the challenge, but I just want to be, make sure that you know how grateful I am and what a gift it is that people offered more, shared more, and I hope that also was transformative in their lives.
Bob Mosley.
Can I ask a detailed question to Mike? In the past, the money coming into the offerings was change on the general fund ledger. That was what was counted as toward our partnerships. That was the only revenue source for partnership giving, like the Senate and the churches, the things that we used to give to, the percentage of that. And I'm assuming that's still the case. Is that correct?
So the giving to our partnerships, which is, we present them with, well, we have in the past presented them time. Oh, and I just lost my page. It has been a budgeted item with a so 10% percented and then 0.5% for Southeast Cluster. And then the other, and those are the only two that we have at current.
Right, and that funding comes from the offerings.
Yes, correct. Yes, correct. So that we are giving to other nations was removed last year, 2019, I do believe. I can look that up, because I'm pretty sure that 2019 was the last that we. Yes, so our last organizations. So at current, the only outside organizations are the Synod.
Roles, all of which Lucy has been filling. And so instead of having them be separate roles and budgeted separately, we collapsed them and put together a job description, and Lucy agreed that she would salary. So it's all essentially the same money-wise, different in terms of responsibility description and title.
Correct. 2021. I have too many papers up here. As I flip this around, as you can see, we have budgeted for general operating receipts, 200,698, which then puts in another 76 reserve accounts to borrow from dedicated, and an operating budget of, I'll pull that up, $287,155. So the council has gone through everything that we can with a fine-tooth comb and tried to work on all of the different parts and parcels of these accounts. As a very wise church member once told me, that we operate as a three-legged stool. So we have the monies, we have the building, and then we have the programs. And of course, if one is short, you're gonna fall over. So we have debated long and hard, many hours as the council, and we really would like assistance if anyone has ideas. The important thing I think that needs to be remembered is setting up the services and being able to live stream and being able to provide safe space for schools, and all of the programs that we brought on this year were through grants. They were not through operating expenses. So we are receiving monies for those programs. the monies that's coming in does not go into the general. They are separate and of themselves. There are possibilities, and we will be talking about that during the congregational meeting, whereby we could possibly supplement some operating expenses, or, and most specifically in use, because we do have all this equipment. The church owns it. What are we going to do with it, and how can we use it for the community? And there are many thoughts about how we could use it for the community, which could help in our situation. But you don't know until you open it up and let them come. So we can't say that would make up the difference. It might, but I doubt it, just because I don't know that organizations and people that would like to use this facility are, one, able to pay as far as profit organizations, and not a part of our normal or our normal church use group. Bob?
Can you indicate to us, when the council discussed these issues, what, if anything, was on the table, was discussed and voted against, or not voted on?
What was discussed?
What was discussed as how to address the problem financially, and what was just a talk? Say, we're not gonna go in this direction, something like that.
What was discussed was how to bring in more revenue for operating expenses, knowing what the budget is right now, but then secondly, knowing that we have an opportunity to possibly supplement the budget with regards to all this equipment that we have so graciously been granted and we could be using for the community.
So as far as trying to raise revenue, was there a plan put out?
Yeah, we discussed one because it was a timeline issue. We have submitted a letter of intent to the Juneau Community Foundation for a new program called Juneau Live, which would be a part of that. We also have the possibility that we could receive monies from the Mental Health Trust and the Rasmussen Foundation for that. But that's something that is going to take a while to gear up. We don't have the grants. I mean, we just put in a letter of intent, and then we have the Rasmussen and the Mental Health Trust. We're going to have to put in the grants for that. So those are not givens. And not, the other part to that would be, we would have to start ramping up. So would we see fruition with regards to additional revenue in 2021? I don't know that that's realistic.
Would any of those grants be able to go toward the operational budget?
Some of them would supplant use of the facility use. The other ones would be, if we did get this specifically that, like we requested, then as part of the outreach, it would pay for a portion of Pastor Karen's salary because of the outreach as part of that. There will be a report on Juneau Live in the booklets, so you can see what we are envisioning. But like I said, we've put in a letter of intent and no monies have been received. But this is a vision that we have talked about and considered, knowing that we were given these assets through grants and taking it even further.
Do grants generally have a timeline?
Grants have a timeline, yes. So what with regards to the grants that we received in 2020, the grant had specifically, we had to spend the CARES funds by the end of the year. So, and that's why this equipment is here. The monies were here and the equipment was here. Safe Space for Schools was a grant through the end of the year. However, they have extended it through the end of February now, so we're 2 months in, because it's pretty dependent on how the schools are opening up.
And more money is received for that extension?
Yes, more monies were received. There's no operating funds used for Safe Space for Schools, and including the increase as far as computer usage, bandwidth, all that needs to be done so that the kids can be doing their online learning. So, huge benefits for the church because we now have this wonderful bandwidth. We have new floor downstairs. There's a lot of things that we greatly were allowed to have through this grant. And so while grants have deadlines or timelines, now we have these wonderful assets, and we really would like to see how we can utilize that throughout. But like I said, I don't know that we're going to see fruition to a lot of what we envision in 2021, knowing because things aren't opening up as fast as we would like them to, and organizations aren't organizing and getting ready to go. I might be wrong. I might be wrong in that everything opens up and the world opens up and the light comes out and all of a sudden we're really rolling come, April, May.
Just as a minor thing, I noticed coming into the sanctuary today that we have extra totes between us and the birdhouse. Is that impacting our garbage pickup or trash pickup?
Yes, and that is included in the cost for Safe Schools. Yes. Pastor Karen has a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment on the grants. Also, part of the grant for RLC Live was a mixed grant, but part of it was for the food pantry.
Oh,
And
correct.
which it was partly floor downstairs, some other resources, but the pantry software that I spoke about earlier was also part of the grant.
I apologize, yes. So some of the CARES money was for the food pantry.
Do you think there's a possibility of getting a continuous grant for the food bank itself, just because of what we're doing with the community?
The
If-
answer to that is yes, and we're looking at getting some grant money for that, and just like the Southeast Alaska Food Bank grant that helped pay for the food, pay for our food pantry bill, for the last 6 months of last year.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look at that and see if we can get some, more
So-
money for that.
As soon as we find out that there are additional monies available, we do go for them. Yes, for sure. So I'm waiting for the email that comes out and says we have monies available, but currently I don't know of any.
Yeah, even the Juneau Live grant, the one piece of it that we submitted the letter of intent for, their year goes July through June.
Correct.
So, now that's not true of the other pieces, but it, at least part of it is a July through June, fiscal year.
Yes. So, you have the proposed budget. As I said earlier, when you look at bits and pieces, it doesn't necessarily add up, and we have to thoughtfully deliberate and think about what it is that we want to do as a group, as a congregation, as this church, to continue our mission. So, I don't know who is on iPad. I want to make sure that I allow them any questions if they have any, or they could text us if they have any.
Somebody at home, it only says iPad,
Yes, that,
and then we can see the top of Mary Lou's head, right?
yes. And then I would like to see if Mary Lou and Steve have any questions.
No questions.
Okay. I want to make sure that you are involved, and I don't want to forget you, because
Thank you
you're
for
two of the most, some of the most important people in the group, and we miss you. So,
Well, I'm glad I get to see you guys once in a while.
yes, yes. Although the camera still has not taken off 10 years and 10 pounds. We forgot to buy that camera in the grant.
Yeah.
Rats. And I'm looking at it, and there's a little bit of gray still sticking out there. I don't know. I'm calling them my highlights, but
Glare off the sun is coming.
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. So, do we know who iPad is?
No, we still have not responded.
Okay.
It might be Christine.
Oh, it might be. That might be.
Because I think I've seen her use that, she may just be
Yeah.
listening. Whoever it is, my guess.
Yes,
is
so
listening.
whoever is on iPad, if you can hear us, and if you have any questions, please send an email or a text to, you can send it to me, or you can send it to the office, and if there's any questions, hopefully we'll be able to respond to them and answer them before next week. Now, next week, after church, we are going to specifically talk about the Berg House. And we will be providing information this week as to what's happening with the Berg House and the potential for selling it. We have a market analysis so that we will be sending out a recommended listing priced. So please watch for that and think about what that is. And I can tell you, just as we begin this process, we still, as a council, are committed to going through a discernment process whereby we really spend the time and the effort
The money.
defining, and money, yes, defining who we are and what we want to be as a church. That has not left the council's table. However, on the other side to that is there will be monies and time and efforts that will need to be spent with regards to that process. And so you will not see that per se in the operating budget. And it may become a dedicated account in and of itself. So the discernment process is still very alive and something that we as a council, and we can talk about it as a congregation, but we as a council do believe that it is really something that we need to do. The question is, of course, this all hit us in the middle of a pandemic, and how we do it is going to be questionable, and what our timeline is going to be is questionable, and definitely the money to do the process is questionable. And Bob has a question.
Is that the discernment process line item here, is that associated with that project that the Senate is recommending about a 3-year
Yes,
And it was it something like 5,000 a year?
yes,
So this is a third of the budget, which, once you get into the project, you're committed for the other two, I'm assuming.
if we want to go through this process and be successful, I mean, one can always start a process and, I suppose, bail out, but we are committed to going through the entire process. Yes,
Church council,
yes.
not so much the congregation.
We do not know.
Congregation voted unanimously to do this.
Yes, at the last meeting, that's what was decided, that we should go through a discernment process. And the council has been very deliberate in making sure that that does not fall by the wayside. But the timing and the process and all of the other things, well, they came to a screeching halt because the world came to a screeching halt, and it needs to be considered. So we need to continue that thought and how we're going to do it.
But we have not committed contractually yet.
We have not committed contractually yet. Pastor Karen.
So, and that process, yeah, it would be a waste of money to do the first year and then quit. But it's also, it's something that the congregation voted unanimously to do, and it has to be the whole congregation. It is not something that can be done by a subgroup of the congregation.
Yes.
So it's you know, it's one of those things where either all signing up or none of us are.
Correct. Correct. Do I have any other questions? Now, if there are any questions between now and the annual meeting, the reason I'm saying this is because, and I think Mary Lou, you can probably raise your hand or nod your head or whatever, but meetings over an hour on Zoom are really boring and tend to fall apart. I don't know if she's shaking her, yeah, she's waving. So the whole idea of us having this meeting and then having the meeting next week with regards to the Berg House is because we have a lot of things that we have to do since we are at one meeting, one annual meeting. And so we need to address those, and we need to be pretty cut and dry with those. And we need to kind of stay on the agenda and keep moving forward, or we're going to lose people off of Zoom. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that everybody is involved, has heard the discussions. That's why we're taping this, much to my chagrin, because it'll just be me, and that's a problem when I watch it on YouTube. But we will be discussing all of these, and if there's questions or there's concerns, things that we can bring up prior to the meeting. I'm not trying to cut off discussion, but we really need to be cognizant of the people that will be calling in, Zooming in, and trying to make sure that we make this meeting as productive as possible for everybody. So that's why I would like to know concerns and questions, and you can email me, you can email the office, you can call me, you can call a council member. I'm not the only person on council, so call a council member if need be, and let us know what your questions or concerns are so that we can address them and make sure that everybody's needs and wants and concerns are addressed in a very deliberate manner, so we can make sure that everybody that's participating doesn't go off into the Zoom atmosphere.
And by the way, that includes those who watch this YouTube later. They can,
Yes.
they should
Oh, absolutely,
Including
yes.
if you send your questions on the live chat on the website, those will get cycled through to whoever does do that. By the way, it hasn't just been you. The tech crew has stayed back, and Jared's been, switching camera
Yes.
positions to other people on the thing, so it's not just you for the last hour.
Well, no, but I meant,
I know you.
I mean, I'm just watching the monitor and,
We've been staying here and making sure. that
Yes.
Best we can do to make it interesting.
so we'll try and make it as interesting as possible, but I've been on some Zoom meetings, and after about an hour, I start zoning out. And even if they're really, really super exciting, it's just kind of that hour thing. It just seems like your brain starts to shut down. So I really appreciate everybody coming and Zooming in, and I look forward to questions and fruitful discussion, and together we will perform miracles, all in the name of Christ. So, Randy, do you want to end in prayer?
I was gonna say, and pray.
And pray. Oh, absolutely. I thought you were going to end in prayer, because
That too.
you could do that as well. End us in prayer.
Apparently, he doesn't want to, so I'll do it.
Yes. Okay, you may end us in prayer, Pastor
So
Karen.
please stand and we'll pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Karen.
Have a good week, Steve and Mary Lou, and whoever's on iPad.
Yes.
We pray with you.